I just finished Empire of the Dawn, which is the third and final book in the trilogy by Jay Kristoff for his Empire of the Vampire. So I'm going to do a quick spoiler-free review for this lovely conclusion to this trilogy. I finished this at the end of 2025. You all are seeing it at the beginning of 2026, but I am excited that this is going to be my final conclusion book for 2025. I think it ended this year phenomenally, and I had a really great time. Overall, I would rank this book a 4-star read. I would give it 2.5 to 3 chili peppers. It is a bit more sexy, if you will, than books 1 and 2 in this trilogy, which both only were given 2 chili peppers. There's a little bit more in this book, and so I think it deserves a little bit higher of a rating in that regard. I think this is a phenomenal conclusion. I have so many thoughts, and I'm excited to share some of them with you, as well as let you know if I think this is a good book for you to read. First things first, when it comes to characters, I loved the characters in this book. I thought they were wonderful and fabulous. I've honestly loved the characters from the very first book in this trilogy, and they continue to deliver throughout this book. I really enjoyed it. There were only a couple of times where I had little question marks, but they are fully resolved by the end of the book, and that really made me feel really good about the characters. Plot-wise, I think that Jay Kristoff is phenomenal with his storytelling. I already knew that he's the type of author to do hidden surprise twists and unexpected conclusions after I read The Nevernight Chronicle, which I loved. That was absolutely fabulous. So I was expecting something similar, but I have to admit, this still very much surprised me at the end. When it comes to the ending itself, I have mixed feelings. Big part of me absolutely loves the ending. It was fabulous. I bulldozed the last 100 pages like I've done with the previous books because it was just so amazing. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. last night just reading this book because it was so phenomenal. There is a part of me, though, that is a little bit like, about this ending. There's just a little bit of uncertainty about how pleased I am with how things wrapped up. I don't know. I can't really put a word to it. It's really just, I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. But the reason why I'm keeping this book at a 4-star rating is because there's a little bit of that uncertainty with how I feel about the ending. I still thought it was fabulous. I still thought it was absolutely worth the read. But I don't know. There's the third book in the Nevernight Chronicle, not to, eternally compare these two series, but the third book in that series, the conclusion was it was a 5-star phenomenal conclusion. The conclusion here was phenomenal, but I have to say, just there were some aspects to it that I just had a question mark in my mind about. Nothing bad. It was still fabulous, but I would give it a 4-star overall for the ending as well. The middle of this book, like its predecessors, has a lull. I think all 3 books in the Empire of the Vampire trilogy have lulls throughout their middle sections, and that's something to keep in mind. It's also why I strongly recommend, if you are thinking about Jay Kristoff, I said this multiple times before, but I strongly recommend, if you're thinking about reading Jay Kristoff, start with the Nevernight Chronicle. If you can get through the lull that's in book 1 of Nevernight, you can get through all the lulls in here too. But the Nevernight Chronicle is a solid 5-star trilogy. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And especially when you get into book 2 and 3, the way it just, the middle and the end of the whole trilogy is just astoundingly fabulous. For this series, it is consistent and good all the way through, but those lulls halfway through all 3 books can become a little bit of a drag. And it is sometimes difficult to read as much as you might be used to reading for these types of books during those lulls. So that's why I would give it a 4-star and why I'm so strongly recommending you read the Nevernight Chronicle first. So this kind of leads into who would I recommend this trilogy for? Well, I think consistently from beginning to end, this series is a series for individuals who already know that they are capable of reading very large books. This book is another over 750 pages. I think there's 770, close to 770 pages. It's long, it's a chonker. So you need to know that for yourself, that you can read something of this length before you go diving into a 3-book series, especially because there are lulls. But if you know you already love Jay Kristoff, if the Nevernight book 1 didn't bother you at all or was fine even though it had a lull, you're going to absolutely eat up Empire of the Vampire. So you definitely should read it if that was not a problem for you. Keep in mind that the art in book 3 is different than the art in book 1 and book 2, which, again, mixed feelings. The art is phenomenal. So the reason this happened was that the artist who did books 1 and book 2, she was unavailable to meet the deadlines or something for getting the art done for book 3 in order for it to come out at a reasonable publication date. So the author went with a second artist. She did a phenomenal job. Both artists were wonderful and amazing. But as anybody who's had animation shows or art that changes partway through, it's hard because it just shifts consistency. We do have consistency in that there are still literally over 30, 40 pieces of art in this. It's absolutely phenomenal. But the art is a different style. Keep that in mind. For the characters who we met in books 1 and 2, who we saw art for in those books, it can be hard to see art that's different for those characters in this book. That's true. However, the art pieces, especially for characters we hadn't met before, those pieces were just chef's kiss, truly phenomenal. I loved them. The art in this one is a little bit more realistic than the art in book 1 and 2, and you got to get accustomed to it, and it happens, and it's totally fine, and you do, honestly, I think it took just seeing probably 5 or 6 of the art in here before I started getting used to that style as we progressed through it. As I mentioned before, I would give this a 2.5 chili peppers because there are sex scenes in this book, and they're from start to finish, as with book 1 and book 2, but I feel like there's just a little bit more in this book in comparison to book 1 and book 2, which had a little bit less. Sex still isn't really the point of the story, but jokes about genitalia seem to happen quite regularly. It's just something that occurs in this book. I wasn't necessarily bothered by it. It just means that it's a 2.5 chili peppers for its spicy rating. I think The Empire of the Vampire was an excellent choice for me to read post Halloween. I it definitely took me a lot longer than I thought it was. I was really planning on finishing this in November, and it is the end of December. So don't be surprised if this takes you a little bit longer than you might have thought it would, because not only is it over 760 pages long, those pages are also full. Like the text, it's not the smallest text you've ever seen, but it's also like not the largest either, so keep that in mind as well. This book, like its predecessors, is split up into 6 sections called books, and so I went through each of those books and I found my favorite quotes. I posted sections from both the first book, the second book, and the third book of my favorite quotes, and I have to say, this author continues to nail some phenomenal quotes. I will say I had to limit the number of favorite quotes from book 3, partially because of spoilers, but I definitely think that book 2 probably had the most hilarious quotes in this entire series. This one still had quite a few, and I still really enjoyed it. There's elements of complete devastation and heartbreak, there's epic battle scenes, this is fantasy, this is queer. I feel like I might have forgotten to mention that in my previous post, but this is gay. Like, not entirely, but we have sapphic energy here, we have gay energy here, we have straight energy here, it's all there. And so we have characters that we follow who display LGBT characteristics, which is absolutely phenomenal and wonderful. I always love having queer content in my fantasy stories. This is not new for Jay Kristoff. The Nevernight Chronicles is representing queer culture, which is fantastic. Both of these trilogies definitely fall into queer fantasy as well, which is awesome. So as I said, this book continues with the consistency of books 1 and 2. All of them are 4-star reads. At no point during any of these books or any of the lulls in these books did I ever think of DNFing the series. It is absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. And I think anybody who's really into fantasy, especially epic fantasy, who knows they can read really long books, who already knows that they love Jay Kristoff, who's okay with lulls, especially when you know it's going to be phenomenal in the end, this book is for you and you'll have a great time. I think Jay Kristoff nailed this conclusion, and I think it's fantastic, and I'm really pleased, and I'm so glad I was able to read this trilogy. I'm going to post a video soon with a full review for the entire trilogy, just to reiterate in a bit more of a concise manner how I feel about all 3 books as they work together, but genuinely loved this trilogy, and I strongly recommend it for you if you love long fantasies and are okay with temporary lulls in your stories. The next book on the docket for me is Brandon Sanderson's Tailored Realities, which is his most recent publication. I'm going this route because the Empire of the Vampire trilogy is extremely long. It is over 2,000 pages. I think it's close to 2,300 pages long. This book, on the other hand, is a collection of short stories. Perfect. That is exactly what I need. From what I've heard, this is short stories, and these are sci-fi, and so it's going to give me a little bit of that kind of in-between break that I need. I was originally planning on starting the Cosmere after finishing Empire of the Vampire, but I need a break from really long books. Just a temporary break, not a long one. I promise I will get to Mistborn, but this book is solidly around 550 pages. That's not the longest fantasy by far, but it is still long, and the text kind of indicates that it's also probably a little dense as well. I'm not yet in the mood to read this. I will get there, and shortly, like probably within a month, I'll be starting the Mistborn trilogy, and I will be deep diving into the Cosmere. But as a form for cooling down for me, I'm going to read Tailored Realities. I'm going to get myself some Brandon Sanderson still, but I'm going to have a little bit of a shorter read for sure. And then I'm going to hop over into probably YA fantasy for a little bit, just so I can have something easy and chill and relaxed, because that would be nice for a second. And then I will hop back into Brandon Sanderson and the Cosmere. For those who care, I did have to remove my beautiful fancy long nails, which makes me so sad. I have had long stiletto black nails for 2 years, and I think I'm now becoming allergic to the nail glue I was using, which is really frustrating. So I have to wait for my nails to heal and then see if I can reattach them without having any cuticle issues. So for my next coming up episodes, I'm probably going to keep these guys because I like them, but my nails are going to be back to normal human fingernails instead of my fabulous long claw-like black stiletto nails. They will be missed, and I'm not sure if anybody cared, but I did, so that's all that matters. Regardless of all that nonsense, that is my spoiler-free book review for Empire of the Dawn and my update on my next reading journey. Keep reading what you love, and I'll see you next time.